Hello, I'm Richard and I'm a composer. A lot of people ask me how I compose music, so I wanted to just take you behind the scenes and show you from the start to the end of a composition how I would compose a piece which would be broadcast on BBC Radio 3. I write by hand first of all, with pencil and quite small staid manuscript paper, just so I can get a lot on the page and visually see the music taking shape. But really, the first thing I do is start with text, and that's the most important starting point for me. This commission for St George's, Hanover Square, a church in central London, was to celebrate the 300th anniversary of the church. So the director of music, Richard Gowers, and his colleagues at the church sent me lots of texts that they considered appropriate, and I went through them and I picked this one, and it's from the Common of the Saints, which basically means it's a text to be used liturgically, and you can replace the saint's name with any other saint, but in this case we chose it to be George. So the first thing, important thing, is it's out of copyright, which is always useful. It was a slightly longer text than this, but I just reduced it down. I cut out a few lines that I didn't think would work as well as some of the others, and really boiled it down. I think that the secret of writing a good piece is having as little text as you can get away with. And in this case it needed to be a 3-minute piece, so I didn't need much more. I mean, this is quite a lot of text for a 3-minute piece, but it's basically like 3 sentences. And once I've got the text, that really gives me a sense of the structure, and that's why it's important to spend quite a lot of time getting it right. So it gives the shape of the piece and how the piece is going to unfold over time. And then that does a lot of the structural work for me. So the other thing would be to really get to know it as a text for me, first of all, and just listen to it as words and see what it's telling me, what kind of music it's telling me to write. And it starts off with quite an upbeat, celebratory feel. Now, let us sing, a kind of exhortation to sing together, with the idea of paying thanksgiving. And then what really attracted me to this text was that it's using music as a metaphor. So it's really a piece of music about music, which I always like writing. So you've got mentions of instruments and music, fourfold melody, single strings, everyone's singing together, harmony, symphony, harps. And then it's got other images in the text as well. So it talks about climbing the heights of starry heaven, which obviously immediately suggests a way that the music could work. Once I've got the text and the structure and general ideas, then it's really starting at the beginning and thinking, what is this melody going to be for the first line? How is it going to sound? And so I spend quite a lot of time just thinking about that first line, hearing it. The good thing about words is there's already a kind of musicality to them. Now, let us sing with instruments well tuned. It's got a beat, it's got a rhythm, so that lends itself to melody quite quickly. I tend to avoid texts that don't immediately give something to me melodically, and this one did. So let me show you I made a few initial notes. So I had this, quite quickly I had this idea for a tune for the first line. So it had this repeated quavers going down. It talks about a diverse kind of voice. So it was immediately this idea of going between the voices, the different voices, the high voices, the middle voices, the low voices. That diversity of sound. This wasn't really working in 4/4. It just sounded, it didn't quite have enough rhythmic energy to it. So I put it into 7/8, and that worked much better. It sounded more dancey dun 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 dun. So it had that kind of danciness to it, which I liked, and I think it worked better. So that's how I came up with that first section. And then it talks about with instruments well tuned. So I thought, how could we reflect that in the music? And I'll show you so just the process. So I'd write the whole thing out in sketch form first of all. Pretty rough. I mean, my text writing's appallingly messy. I mean, barely legible. But I like to write it really quickly just so I don't forget what I'm hearing coming next. Occasionally I will sketch out a little plan, and you can see here this section. I just had an idea of where this material was going to go and a few ideas of particular words. A 3/4, a rising line here, a unison coming together with all the voices there. So that felt like I just had to quickly get that down, and then I would sketch out the full part of it, probably here. And so there, but it's usually just writing bar by bar. So they're my sketches. Then I would put it onto Sibelius software, so notation software on the computer, and that's where the kind of fine-tuning, I think, mostly happens. So I would put it in and then go over it and work out if a tune is just in the wrong place, or a note needs to be longer, or an entry needs to be quicker, or I need to cut anything out or repeat anything. And you can see this opening first section, and the idea of tuning with a big G major chord being held, and the idea of tuning that chord before moving on to a more rousing Feast of St. George text. And then again you see the diverse kind of voices moving through the different types of voices, so you hear that in the music, this idea of different qualities of sound. And then these snappy rhythms, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. Again moving between 7/8 and 4/4, still trying to get a sense of that dance and that energy all the way through the piece. Certainly this section. And I felt like it was quite sort of stuck in this opening kind of D major G C area. So I thought let's move it through different colours. So you get lots of movement, and you get moving through flatter keys and different tonal areas. Then this section is a slightly different melody, as on each single string, and the idea of a single string, a single voice, and then moving to fourfold melody a little bit later on, where you get the 4 parts. I think for me it's really important that every line, every part inside the music has a sense of melody, not just accompaniment. So I really try and sing through each part and work out whether it sounds melodic, it sounds lyrical, each inner part. That's really important to me. So you don't want too many different ideas, you want to tease out the ideas that you've already got. And so this really simple undulating melody, sort of going through the parts like a little duet, kind of through to the end of the piece, and we kind of wind down to quite a peaceful, meditative ending where it talks about communion, togetherness, and so that's how the piece ends. And I'm really looking forward to hearing it next week. So that's a little bit about the piece. I hope that was useful and interesting to hear how I composed this commission. So I thought I'd end with 3 recommendations of things that I've been listening to and enjoying. And the first of which is a new EP from the excellent composer John Barber, and it's called Rivers, and it's performed beautifully by the Fourth Window Choir, led by Sarah Latto. So have listened to that. And there's another group called Stare at the Sun. They're an American group, American choir, and they do really interesting contemporary works, often by young living composers. And I particularly enjoyed a piece by Alissa Voth called The Spirit Intercedes. Yeah, it's a beautiful piece. It's quite got some really interesting effects, and she creates lots of different colours with the voices. It builds to some really beautiful, vibrant chords. And my final recommendation is the Mancunium Consort, who I've worked with before, and their latest video of a recording of Stanford's Bluebird, which is a piece that feels like it's a lot of people are liking it at the moment. So there are my 3 recommendations.